Today we have a corporate event. I have to go. Kevin sighed insincerely, informing his wife as he prepared for work in the morning. The boss came up with the idea to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of our company. It's not even a significant date. What's got into his head? You only found out about this today? Lisa asked in surprise. I would have at least gone to the hairdresser, had my hair done. Oh well, I'll quickly curl my hair, it'll look nice. What does your hairstyle have to do with it? Her husband exclaimed in bewilderment. I'm going alone. Mr. Rodney is only inviting his employees, no wives or girlfriends, so sorry I can't take you with me. Lisa remained silent, though she felt offended. Look at him, twisting things around, claiming everyone will be there without their partners. Well, well, as they say, the tale is fresh, but difficult to believe. Lately, my dear husband has been reluctant to go out with me. He always comes up with one excuse or another. Well, here's my chance to use my secret weapon and test my husband's loyalty to the family values. I didn't prepare for nothing. And the weapon, as she called it, had been prepared in advance. Doubts about her husband's fidelity had been gnawing at her for a long time. Any woman can sense her partner's cooling affections, and Kevin didn't bother to hide much, coming up with laughable excuses for his late return home. Lisa worked as an administrator in the pension fund. When she began to suspect that her husband was, as they say, straying, she contacted a university classmate who worked in the local police department and had access to various spy gadgets. Lisa asked him to lend her one of those devices. He hesitated and refused at first, but eventually agreed, sternly warning her not to tell anyone and to return it quickly, or he could lose his job and face charges. Well, if that's the case, then go alone, of course. It's a shame we haven't gone out together in so long, Lisa replied to Kevin. Let me at least iron your new shirt so you look presentable, and don't forget to shave. While her husband buzzed with the electric razor in the bathroom, Lisa quickly retrieved a surveillance kit from under her clothes in the wardrobe and inserted a tiny transmitter the size of a pin into the inner lining of her husband's jacket. As the workday ended, the entire staff of the firm, where Kevin was the department head, hurried to a restaurant for a corporate event. The employees, accompanied by their spouses, close friends and partners, entered the elegantly decorated hall. Kevin arrived with a glamorously dressed woman, who clung tightly to his side, swaying her hips as they walked. The venue buzzed with preparations for the important event. Musicians tuned their instruments on a small stage, while waiters hurried about with trays of various appetizers. Mr. Rodney had spared no expense, and the employees eagerly anticipated the delicacies. Kevin, Dakota playfully addressed her companion, aren't you worried about being here with me instead of your wife? What are you talking about? Kevin laughed loudly. No one will remember that, hen. Everyone will be admiring you, my gorgeous lady. Besides, I don't care what anyone thinks. My wife and I live like strangers. It's you I love. He pulled Dakota close and kissed her. Meanwhile, Lisa, knowing the start time of the corporate event, had activated a listening device in advance. Hearing her husband refer to her as a hen, she nearly burst into tears from the insult. What a scoundrel, Lisa thought, wiping away tears. Not only is he openly cheating without a shred of decency in front of his colleagues, but he's also speaking so disparagingly about me to his mistress. What a vain peacock, strutting around like that. No, I won't let this slide. I need to go there right now and cause a massive scandal. He won't forget this corporate event anytime soon. Lisa, despite her emotional turmoil, managed to freshen up her appearance, though it was challenging with anger and hurt welling inside her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and her head ached from the shock of hearing her husband's cruel words. Without delay, she called a taxi and left the apartment, hiding the listening device in her jacket pocket. As she sat in the taxi, continuing to listen for any further insults from her husband, she didn't immediately notice who her driver was. It was only upon closer inspection that she saw the taxi's steering wheel was equipped with hand controls for the gas and brake, and a pair of crutches stood between the seats. "Oh," Lisa thought in concern, "I hope we don't get into an accident." Noticing her concerned gaze, the driver nodded and calmly said, "I see you're worried about my crutches. No need to be. I've been driving this car for a long time, without any accidents. I have 2 children to feed, and life forced me to adapt." Though not entirely reassured, Lisa observed how skillfully and carefully the driver manoeuvred the car, momentarily distracting her from her own troubles. She cautiously asked about his story, curious about how he came to be a single parent to 2 children. Marcus, the driver, had a challenging life. He had been a taxi driver for many years, but was involved in an accident caused by another drunk driver a few years ago, who was entirely at fault, and by court order paid Marcus a substantial compensation for his injuries, as well as a small pension. Since Marcus suffered a severe spinal injury and now relied on crutches to move around. Before the accident, Marcus was married to a woman who was already pregnant at the time. She gave birth to twins. Marcus, however, took it calmly, considering the children his own, and happily cared for them with joy and pleasure. However, after the car accident, his wife, seeing what her husband had become, fell into deep despair. One day she decided to visit her mother, leaving the children with her husband for just a couple of days, as she assured him. Alas, it turned out to be a ruse, a convenient excuse to abandon both her husband and children. She proved to be a heartless cuckoo, not even calling once to ask how Marcus was doing or how the boys were faring. Marcus had to care for both himself and raise the children alone. It was undeniably difficult. At times, despair made him want to abandon everything and run away from home. But overcoming his struggles, he learned to manage the household and take the children to kindergarten. With the compensation money, he bought a car and had it modified for hand controls at a service station. He began driving passengers, finding it convenient as he wasn't tied to a work schedule and could arrange with the dispatcher to take breaks and spend time with his children. Occasionally, his mother would visit him from the village to help her son. Each time she came, she couldn't help but lament her daughter-in-law's actions. "How could she abandon her little ones? Doesn't she have a heart?" Marcus would try to calm her, saying, "Mum, let it go. It's all in the past. Why dwell on it? I told you, even when she was pregnant, she wasn't overjoyed. She didn't really want children." Once, in a moment of honesty, she told me she even considered a termination, but was afraid of the potential complications. "But look at the boys. They're independent, close-knit, and already helping me out." Lisa was astonished by his story. "You're a wonderful person. It's not easy raising someone else's children, especially in your condition. Few healthy people would take on such a responsibility." As they neared the restaurant where the corporate event was taking place, Lisa suddenly overheard a strange conversation between Kevin and someone named Sam. "Listen," Sam said, "we need to push our plan, starting tomorrow. The longer Mr. Rodney stays in his chair, the higher the chance everything will be exposed, and it'll be our heads on the chopping block, not his. Do you agree, Kevin?" "Yes, you're probably right," Kevin replied hesitantly. "We have some documents. If we prepare and present them correctly to the General Director, showing the operations our boss is running, I think it will be enough to oust him. What do you think? Does one of us have a chance to take the leadership role afterward? Just don't forget about me when everything works out. I won't forget about you. We'll move forward together." Lisa was shocked by these words. So, Kevin was not only cheating, but also involved in a serious plot at work. She couldn't believe that her husband, whom the boss had taken a risk on by appointing him as department head, despite his past incompetence, was involved in such scheming. "What a scoundrel! Look what he's planning! And I'm just a hen unwanted and unneeded. Just you wait. I'll get even with you for this audacity, she fumed. While she had initially planned to confront her husband at the corporate event, the conversation she overheard changed her mind. Lisa decided to take a different approach. What's the point of storming in and causing a scene now? I'll see his smug face, and then what? No, I need to think through everything I've heard and then act with a clear head. Just you wait, dear hubby. You shouldn't have tried to humiliate me. Getting a new plan in mind, Lisa asked the taxi driver to let her out before reaching the restaurant. Seeing that his passenger was troubled, the driver offered to take her home, but Lisa declined, deciding to walk home to cool down. She felt pain and humiliation. Her sense of dignity was shattered. Her heart pounded with anxiety, and tears of resentment choked her. As she went through the park, lost in thought, she noticed 3 young men approaching her. "Where are you rushing to, beautiful?" one of them slurred. Lisa tried to sidestep them, but one of the men struck out his foot, nearly tripping her. "Please, let me pass," she pleaded. "Wait, let's get to know each other," another drooled, his words slurred. Lisa felt a wave of fear. She tried to run, and at that moment, the 3rd man snatched her purse. Fortunately, she managed to break free and escape from the hooligans. Almost running, choking back tears, she hurried home, hating her husband and his antics. "He's having fun, feeling good, and why should I suffer? He left me at home, betrayed me, and now I've been robbed because of him. He's ruined my life instantly. I hate him." She arrived home in tears. To her surprise, her mother-in-law was already waiting for her here. Sarah had come to visit, but no one was home. Fortunately, she had keys to their apartment. The mother-in-law was taken aback and rushed to ask, "Lisa, what happened to you? Why are you crying? Where is Kevin? What's going on with you two?" Lisa wanted to pour her heart out to her mother-in-law about her son's treachery, but she quickly composed herself and decided not to. "I was just robbed, right in the park. I went to the pharmacy because I had a terrible headache and needed painkillers. 3 drunk men accosted me. They snatched my purse. Luckily, I managed to break free and run away. I got off with just a scare, but I was terrified." Sarah was alarmed. "Did you get a good look at those scoundrels? Why are we just standing here? Call the police. Let them catch the bandits while the trail is hot. You poor thing." But Lisa just waved her hand dismissively. "It's pointless. There were only keys to the apartment and a little money in the purse. My phone was in my jacket pocket, thank goodness. I'll make a duplicate of the keys tomorrow, and that's that. I'm sad about the purse, but oh well, the police won't bother with such trivialities. I'll just waste my time being dragged around." Gradually, Lisa calmed down, largely thanks to her mother-in-law. Sarah had brought treats for her son and daughter-in-law. She had baked cheesecake muffins. Lisa put the kettle on, and over tea they chatted about this and that. Lisa and her mother-in-law shared a warm and trusting relationship. Sarah appreciated Lisa's housekeeping skills, cleanliness and diligence. Lisa kept the house spotless, especially the kitchen, and always prepared home-cooked meals for her husband. She had a good job, was well educated, and was comfortable with modern technology. Moreover, Lisa was intelligent, attractive, and pleasant to talk to, making her an ideal daughter-in-law in Sarah's eyes. After a heart-to-heart conversation, Sarah headed home, and exhausted from the day's events, Lisa collapsed onto her bed and fell asleep. She was awakened by the crash of a fallen teapot in the kitchen. It was 6 a.m, and her husband had just returned from the corporate event, heavily intoxicated. He stumbled around the kitchen, knocking things over, before drinking some water and retreating to bed. Suddenly realizing she couldn't live with her husband For another minute, Lisa decided that she also couldn't let the scheme he and Sam had planned against Mr. Rodney go unpunished. Although she didn't know Mr. Rodney personally, she believed he must be a decent man if scoundrels like her husband and his friend were plotting against him, intending to tarnish his reputation before the general director. Lisa obtained Mr. Rodney's phone number from the reception and called him. She introduced herself and requested a meeting, but not in the office. Mr. Rodney was surprised. Why would the wife of one of his employees want to meet him secretly? But he agreed to meet at a cafe near the office. Upon hearing what Lisa had to say, Mr. Rodney interrupted her in disbelief. "Nonsense! A conspiracy against me? You're saying Kevin and Sam are involved? I can't believe it. I treat them both fairly. They have good salaries. Why would they do this? Besides, the general director is my relative, unbeknownst to them. Who do you think he'll trust, them or me?" But after he had listened to the recording of the conversation from the corporate event, he admitted, "Indeed, you were right. What scoundrels! I didn't expect them to plot something like this. Thank you. Now I'm forewarned and forearmed. I'll take the strictest measures. Neither will get away with this. Besides, let me return the favour. Don't waste your time. Kevin is quite the womanizer. He's been seeing a woman named Dakota. He was with her at the corporate event. My advice to you, leave him. He doesn't value or love you." Lisa sighed and replied, "I know about his mistress. That's why I came here. It's a farewell message to my husband. You're right. I'll do just that. Thank you for the advice. Goodbye." Meanwhile, her husband sorting through the pile of his clothes after the corporate event, he suddenly felt something unusual on the lapel. Seeing what it was, he froze. "Oh, someone from work must have decided to overhear my conversations. Are they aware of my plans?" As for Mr. Rodney, he was indeed related to the general director, but used every opportunity to outmaneuver him for personal gain. And Kevin and Sam had caught wind of his actual misdeeds. Knowing about the brewing conspiracy, Mr. Rodney decided to toy with them like a seasoned cat with a mouse. He summoned Kevin to his office and subtly hinted that he had just spoken with Sam, who allegedly warned him that Kevin was plotting to frame Mr. Rodney to take his position. Kevin left the office in a panic, cursing his friend. "You can't trust anyone. There's betrayal everywhere. I need to stop talking to Sam and forget this whole scheme." Sam's thoughts, whom he invited right after Kevin, were flowing in almost the same direction. Now both men pretended nothing had happened and that they were still friends, carefully avoiding any discussion about overthrowing their boss. And Mr. Rodney, observing from a distance, rubbed his hands in satisfaction. He had skillfully neutralized these fools, essentially pitting them against each other. Meanwhile, Lisa's mother-in-law faced problems with her health. During a checkup, the doctor insisted that Sarah undergo a thorough examination by a specialist. "Lisa," Sarah called her daughter-in-law after the appointment, "I need your help. I'm going to the clinic for an examination. Can you come with me tomorrow?" Lisa, getting worried, took a day off work and accompanied her mother-in-law to the doctor's office early the next morning. While Sarah was being examined, Lisa stepped outside and saw a familiar taxi driver, supporting himself with crutches, leading a little boy to the paediatrician. "Oh, hi, do you remember me? How are you?" "Hi, of course. I'm all right. We're here to see the doctor. My son was ill, but he is all right now, and tomorrow he'll be back in school. Right, Thomas?" Marcus said. Just then, Sarah emerged from the doctor's office, visibly upset. Lisa hurriedly said goodbye to Marcus and rushed to her mother-in-law. "What did the doctor say?" she asked. Sarah, unable to hold back her tears, replied sadly, He said I need surgery and urgently. Oh, I dread going under the knife. Lisa did her best to reassure her. Don't worry. At least now we know what needs to be done. I'll speak to the doctor myself. You sit here, have some water, and try to calm down. Everything will be all right. We'll get through this together. Sarah took Lisa's hand and thanked her sincerely. Thank you, Lisa. You are like a daughter to me. The way you care and worry. I called Kevin, but he's always busy, never has a moment for his mother. It's hurtful. After speaking with the surgeon, Lisa learned that the operation would be performed free of charge under her medical insurance. The procedure was routine, typically without complications, and patients usually recovered well. She escorted her mother-in-law home, instructing her to gather her belongings for the hospital stay. Then Lisa called Kevin to inform him about his mother's surgery. He took a long time to answer, and when he finally did, he snapped irritably. What's the emergency? A flood or a war? First my mother calls, now you. Can't you see I'm at work? Lisa couldn't hold back any longer. What kind of person are you? You don't care about anyone. Not me, not your own mother. She's having surgery tomorrow. Did you even know? Or are you only interested in your mistress, Dakota, and not your wife or mother? You called me a hen at the corporate event, remember? Kevin exploded. So you're the one who set me up at work. I wondered why the boss was so angry with me. You bugged my phone. How could you snitch on your own husband? Lisa retorted. What choice did I have? You're hardly ever home, always lying, and I'm supposed to put up with it? I can't stand you anymore. You're a disgusting cheater. I'm filing for divorce. I won't live with a scoundrel like you anymore. Lisa hung up, her mood ruined. She sat down and cried, then, calming down slightly, asked herself, where will I live now? It wasn't a simple question. She couldn't stay in her husband's apartment, and her mother-in-law's tiny one-bedroom wasn't an option either. She considered staying with her mother in the suburb, though she knew she wouldn't last long there. Lisa's father had passed away long ago, and her mother had remarried. Her stepfather, though he earned some money working for a local plant, was a heavy drinker and became violent when intoxicated. Lisa never understood why her mother stayed with him. When Lisa was in her final year of school, he started making lewd advances, even trying to touch her inappropriately when her mother wasn't home. Lisa, always able to stand up for herself, threatened him with a frying pan and warned she'd report him to the police. She vowed never to see him again and hadn't returned home since, though she kept in touch with her mother and sent her money. Now, facing her own difficulties, Lisa decided to visit her mother, hoping to find some solace and time to think about her future. Lisa's mother was overjoyed to see her daughter, crying and embracing her, fussing over setting the table. Lisa, not yet unpacking her bag, shared her sad news with her mother, who shook her head in sympathy, trying to dissuade her from the divorce. Lisa, don't talk nonsense. Kevin may not be perfect. He's strayed and been rude and you're hurt. But that's our lot as women, to endure and forgive. Men are all like that. It's not easy with them. You need to adapt, accept it. Maybe you'll reconcile. After all, family is important. Lisa was astonished by her mother's words and even snapped, Why should I endure? You've put up with that brute all your life, hiding from him at the neighbours'. Are you happy, Mum? By the way, where is he? It's unusually quiet in the house. Or have you finally kicked out Ed? Just then they heard cursing outside. The drunken stepfather had tripped over something in the yard and fallen. Now he'll start looking for someone to blame, the mother whispered in despair, wringing her hands. Indeed, stumbling into the room and seeing not just his wife, but also his stepdaughter, the stepfather began cursing both of them without restraint.
Well, well, look who's here. Couldn't hack city life so you remembered your mama. I'm the boss here. What I say goes. You women need to be kept in line.
Lisa was shocked and tried to reason with the raging drunk. This is Mum's house, not yours. What a boss you are. I see nothing's changed here. Turning to her mother, she asked, Mum, do you like all this? How can you put up with this drunken monster? But seeing her mother silent and submissive, Lisa was even more dismayed. Worse, her mother began fussing over her stepfather, even scolding Lisa. Lisa, how could you? Ed, are you hurt? Do you want some water? Disgusted, Lisa grabbed her bag and headed for the bus stop. She wasn't welcome here, and her mother, completely dependent on her stepfather, didn't say a word in Lisa's defense. There was no changing her. Let her live as she wished. Fortunately, Lisa had a friend in the city who was still single. Staying with her for a few days, Lisa took some time off work and prepared her mother-in-law for surgery. Sarah was distressed about the operation and asked Lisa to call a notary. Why do you need a notary now, Sarah? Wait until you're better. Then you can go yourself if you must. Lisa tried to persuade her. No, Lisa, do as I ask. I have a bad feeling, Sarah begged. After the notary's visit, Sarah said to Lisa, I've left the apartment to you. But what about your son? Lisa asked in surprise. My son? Sarah paused, then said sadly, He has his own place. He won't be homeless. You see how it is. He's forgotten me, doesn't need his mother any more. But you're like a daughter to me. I'm so grateful to you. You're the closest person to me now. And, covering her eyes with her hand, the woman quietly wept. Lisa, upon learning that she had inherited her mother-in-law's apartment, initially intended to inform her about the impending divorce with her husband. However, she decided to wait. She understood that such news would devastate her mother-in-law, who was already suffering from depression. Finally, the day of the operation arrived, and everything went smoothly. By evening, Lisa was already talking to Sarah. See? Everything turned out successfully, Lisa chirped joyfully. I spoke with the doctor and he assured me that you'll be able to walk soon. Now just eat well to recover faster. I'll bring you fresh food every day. Sarah melted at these words, feeling genuinely better. As for her son, he hadn't visited or even called her once. It seemed her son had forgotten all of that, now preoccupied only with himself, with no concern for his mother. Meanwhile, Lisa, delighted that the operation had been successful, walked down the street from the hospital, pondering where she would live next. She felt uncomfortable burdening her friend any longer, even though her friend pretended everything was fine. But where could she go? Renting an apartment was expensive, and her modest salary wouldn't cover it. Just at that moment she ran into Marcus, the taxi driver, who was standing pensively on crutches next to his car, sighing heavily. It was clear that serious problems weighed on him. After greeting him, Lisa asked sympathetically, You look so lost. Is everything all right? Are the boys sick again? No, my boys are fine, but I've run into a problem myself, Marcus confided. He explained that he had been offered a good job delivering small trade orders around the city, but the hours were long, from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. He had heard about an experienced masseur in town who used a unique method which had helped many people, like Marcus, regain mobility. However, his services were expensive. So I would like to take this job, but there's no one to pick the boys up from school and look after them in the evening, Marcus concluded. And I can't afford a nanny. I'm standing here wondering what to do. Lisa shared her own situation, revealing that she was getting a divorce and was now homeless. After a moment of silence, Marcus, slightly embarrassed, proposed, Lisa, would you consider it too forward if I suggested we combine our efforts to solve both our problems at once? Lisa was intrigued by the offer and asked, "And how exactly would this work?" "Well, you'll live with me for free. My apartment is a 4-bedroom, so you'll have one room to yourself. In exchange, I'd like you to help take care of the children, take them to and from school. If you could also cook for them, that would be fantastic. I'll provide money for groceries. What do you think?" He looked at her hopefully. Lisa, initially taken back by the proposal, pondered it. Renting an apartment was necessary anyway, and this seemed like a ready-made, cost-free solution. She wasn't afraid of interacting with children. "All right," she replied after a moment. "Let's give it a try. It might just work out." The first few days in the new living arrangement were chaotic. Living with 4 people, including 2 7-year-olds, was quite different from just 2 adults. However, since everyone was willing to build relationships rather than quarrel, things soon settled into a normal rhythm. The children were obedient and not fussy. Lisa took a leave from work, extending it by a week at her own expense, and enthusiastically took charge of the household. Despite his best efforts, Marcus couldn't manage everything, especially with crutches, the way a true homemaker could. Soon everything was in order. All the laundry was washed, ironed, and neatly put away. The food was delicious, the children were happy, and Marcus was in bliss, coming home late from work to a warm meal. Lisa kept visiting her mother-in-law in hospital, bringing food, clothes, and anything else she needed. "See? I told you everything would be fine," Lisa reassured her. "Much depends on your mindset. You're doing great." Lisa instilled confidence in Sarah about her recovery. It pained Sarah to realize that her son was almost indifferent and cold towards her, never showing interest in her health. Even after learning from Lisa that she was in the hospital, he never visited, only calling a couple of times. She couldn't justify such indifference, and even the doctor was surprised by his absence. Time and again, Sarah bitterly recalled how hard it was to raise him alone. Her husband had died in a workplace accident, falling from a lift during equipment installation on the roof of an oil extraction plant. He died instantly, leaving a wound in Sarah's heart that never healed. He had been a good husband and father. Kevin was only 4 at the time. She never remarried, struggling to raise her son on a nursery school teacher's salary. Despite all the challenges, Sarah always strove to ensure that Kevin was well fed and dressed, no worse than others. Her son completed school with good grades and enrolled in college. Once again, his mother made many sacrifices, taking out a loan so that her son could complete his education. In short, Kevin was the light of her life, her joy and her hope. She was overjoyed when she unexpectedly learned that she had inherited a 2-room apartment from a distant, childless relative. When her son got married, he had a place to bring his wife. Sarah blessed the young couple and was happy that everything was going well for him in his family life and at work. Meanwhile, Kevin's love life also took a turn for the worse. As soon as Dakota sensed that Kevin's position was shaky, she quickly shifted her affections to Mr. Rodney. She began visiting him more frequently, always dressed provocatively. Eventually, the boss succumbed to her charms. Dakota revelled in her newfound importance, and it was she who revealed to Mr. Rodney the details of Kevin's plans against him. This, combined with what Mr. Rodney had heard from Lisa, led to Kevin's dismissal. Finding himself jobless and heartbroken, Kevin pondered his future and decided to take Lisa back. But Lisa met him coldly and sarcastically remarked, "So, Kevin had enough fun? Left without a family and a job?
And now you're crawling back to me like a whipped dog.
Yes, Lisa, I was foolish, and I deeply regret it. I regret not cherishing our happiness and destroying our family with my own hands. But I hope that you will understand and forgive me. I truly loved only you, and I will never love anyone as much. If you refuse me, I won't be able to live."
These hollow threats filled Lisa with only disgust. "No, Kevin, you've gone too far. You've caused me so much pain and nearly ruined my health. There's no point in rehashing the past, so I'm sorry, but I can't help you. You'll have to figure things out on your own. I have to get back to work," Lisa said and left. Kevin walked away, dejected and empty-handed. That same evening, Lisa told Sarah the news about the divorce, trying to do it as gently as possible. "Sarah, I will never abandon you. You are like a mother to me. If you ever need help with anything, you can always count on me. I hope you understand that I couldn't continue living with your son after everything he did." But Sarah had suspected much of this already. Lisa's revelation saddened her, but she held back her tears. Lisa approached her, embraced her and said, "Thank you, Sarah, for your understanding and kindness. Whenever you want to visit us, please do. You are always welcome." A few hours later, Lisa called Marcus to pick her up on his way back from the massage therapist. In the car, Marcus excitedly shared his progress in treating his back. The massage therapist promises that in just 3 months I'll be able to walk without crutches. Imagine, Lisa, once I'm free from pain, I'll be able to walk on my own 2 feet and be a normal person again. I'll even be able to get married. Lisa looked at him questioningly, but her heart raced with anticipation. Marcus looked at her tenderly and continued, "Don't be surprised, Lisa, by what I'm about to say. I want to propose to you. I've admired you from the first day I saw you, and every meeting since has only strengthened my feelings. I was overjoyed when I heard you had divorced your husband. A glimmer of hope shone through, but I thought, who would want a cripple like me? Now there's a chance I'll recover. I know I'm not the most desirable groom, a disabled man with 2 children, but I love you. I think about you all the time. Imagine holding you, kissing you. I can hardly believe I'm saying this to you now." Lisa, nearly in tears, shook Marcus's hand and replied, "You are not a man with disabilities, and don't ever say that. You are the best man in the world. Believe me, I have something to compare it to. I was married to a strong, healthy, handsome man, and what did I get? In all the years of our marriage, I never saw a fraction of the warmth and care from Kevin that I see from you. Only with you have I understood that a man's true worth lies in his actions, not his sweet talk and lies. You are a wonderful father, adopting and raising 2 children, and I'm sure you will be an amazing husband. The children are not a burden to me. They are 2 little sons that brighten our world. I agree to be your wife, and I believe everything will work out for us." Marcus tentatively kissed Lisa, and she responded with a kiss of her own. At that moment they both felt as if they had melted into each other, their hearts filled with joy and contentment. Lisa was not afraid of difficulties. She was prepared for them, for with Marcus by her side nothing seemed daunting. Kevin, essentially cast out of life due to his own foolish actions, spent his days at home, beginning each morning with a drink and ending each day in a drunken stupor. One morning, his hands trembling from a hangover, he was brushing his teeth when he caught sight of himself in the mirror. Staring back at him was a man with a week's worth of stubble, dishevelled hair and bloodshot eyes, a man he barely recognized. Who was to blame for my predicament? My wife, Dakota, Sam, Mr.Rodney? I think the root of all my troubles is that cursed boss. He threw me out. He took everything from me. Kevin's mind, clouded by days of drinking, couldn't discern the cause from the effect of his downfall.
He had forgotten his romance with Dakota, his betrayal of his wife, and his plot with Sam to oust their boss. And only the thought persisted, Mr. Rodney was to blame. Late evening, Kevin bought a bottle of lighter fluid from a hardware store and headed to the office. Surrounded by darkness, with only the moon occasionally peeking through thick, low clouds, he doused the office door with the fluid, spilling some on his jacket. As he struggled to light the door with a trembling hand, the wind kept blowing out the flame. To keep the fire from going out again, Kevin shielded the lighter with his jacket and struck it once more. Finally, the flames caught, but so did his jacket. Kevin stumbled back, frantically trying to extinguish the fire on his clothes, his hands burning in agony. He barely managed to pull off his jacket, scorching his face in the process. Meanwhile, a fire truck, alerted by the fire alarm, was already racing to the scene, sirens wailing. The authorities quickly identified Kevin from the surveillance footage. In court, he sat with a red, barely healed face and hands still bandaged with severe burns. The damages were estimated to be roughly the value of Kevin's apartment, which he subsequently lost. After the incident, Sarah fell ill from the stress and never recovered from a stroke, passing away 6 months later. Lisa wept sincerely at the funeral, organising the farewell and wake with her husband. Kevin, drunk, also showed up, alternating between tears of remorse and shouting about inheriting his mother's apartment. Lisa watched with disgust and pity as the man who was once her husband made a spectacle of himself. When the notary read Sarah's will, Kevin flew into a rage. "You piece of work! You outmanoeuvred me even in this! Always fawning over my mum, turning her against me, and now you've gotten her apartment!" He screamed at Lisa. But Lisa calmly replied, "You fool, Kevin. Your mother left me the apartment long ago, before her surgery, before I never used it. I only wished her health and happiness. It was you who drove her to her grave with your antics. Before you hate others, look at yourself. Stop drinking, go to church, and ask for forgiveness. I'll give it to you if you become a good man. I think Sarah would be glad if you managed." Lisa's words struck Kevin like a slap, sobering him instantly. He resolved to change, to make his mother proud of him, at least in the afterlife. He found a job as a security guard and, true to her word, Lisa gave him the keys to the apartment. Kevin no longer wandered the streets, and conversations with a priest helped him stay on track. He even remarried. Though he and Lisa never became friends, Kevin was grateful to her for setting him straight and giving him a second chance. Meanwhile, Marcus, after a course of massages and special exercises, was back on his feet, walking with a slight limp. He and Lisa got married and raised their children together, living happily. They decided to move out of the city, selling their apartment and buying a spacious house in the countryside. One day Lisa's mother called, crying softly. "You're right, dear. I can't live like this any more. I'm tired of Ed's drinking and cruelty, of the loneliness. I miss you so much. I don't want to live here any more. What should I do?" Lisa replied without hesitation. "What do you mean, what should you do? Marcus and I will be there in an hour. Pack your things. You're coming to live with us. We bought a house. There's plenty of room." Lisa brought her mother to live with them. With the assistance of a police, they evicted Lisa's stepfather from her mother's house and helped her mother divorce him. For the first time in many years, the woman was happy. She no longer flinched in fear, surrounded by love and care. She delighted in looking after the boys and tending the garden, which was now immaculate. One evening, as mother and daughter sat on the veranda sipping tea, Lisa confided, "Mama, I don't know how to tell Marcus, but I think I'm pregnant. With 2 children already, How will he react? Can we manage?" The woman hugged her daughter and reassured her. "Silly girl, if Marcus could accept and raise 2 children from your first marriage, do you think he'll reject his own child? He'll be overjoyed. Don't worry. We'll raise this baby together." When Marcus heard the news, he was ecstatic, kissing Lisa and whispering his love and devotion. He thanked fate for bringing this wonderful woman into his life, who had become the meaning of his life, his inspiration. For her, he was ready to move mountains.